We finally got on. We finally figured it out. We gotta get you some wired headphones and see if it reads it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I might be
we
able to do
figured it out.
that.
Between me being super duper late, I decided to switch the angle of this mic and like I didn't even get it fixed. It's
Man.
there's a little stud that has to go perfectly in order for it to seat all the way so you can tighten it. And if
Mhm.
not, this happens where it has no tension. So luckily for me, I don't have it hanging or anything like that. So either way, we figured it out. We are here finally live on the podcast, which we are calling so far the Science Dum Dums. Essentially, two humans having a conversation about science, topic that I believe we both enjoy, and we know probably a lot less than we think, probably more than most. I don't know where we're at with that, but at any rate, here we are, um, having a conversation. My name is Edgar Antillon, and I'll let the other gentleman on the other side introduce himself.
Yep. My name is Richard Fletcher. Real life engineer. Over here, I'm uh, science dum dum. Really, just interested in science, and so yeah, we decided to do this podcast. Just seeing exactly how much we don't know.
Which arguably is as much as some and a lot less than than others, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so far I'm having fun. This has been good. Something that I super duper appreciate. So yeah, here we is. Last week, we had a conversation about um the mathematical inevitability of the human race. I don't think we needed. I didn't do any fact checking for last week. If you're new to this, if you listen to this and you haven't listened to any of the other podcasts, this is one of the things that I like to talk about at the beginning of every podcast, and that's essentially fact check the previous episode. Anything that we need to clarify, anything that we might have said that is could be taken completely out of context, or just again just in general fact checking. And last week's episode was really more philosophical than anything else. We did have a few people comment on that, and I think humans said that we should do a part two, and we might do a part two. There was good conversations there in the comments, just a little one. So we want to have a conversation about that. But I really don't think that there was any fact checking, unless you think there needs to be anything that you found after that.
No, going through one of the comments about Mr. Levin's work. I believe Mike Levins. Um, I started to look that up, and I haven't quite gotten a chance to sit down and look at it, but it looks very interesting. So I'm going to be probably trying to check it all out for the rest of the week here.
Yeah, so he had made a comment about um doo-doo-doo. And obviously some people want to have a conversation about religion and all that, but um I can't remember. He had recommended somebody. Doo-doo-doo. Let me see. Let me see if I can find the recommendation that he made. Do you remember who he recommended? Oh,
I
Michael
think his name
Levin.
is Mike
Yeah, Michael Levin. Please listen to Michael Levin. So we'll have to check that out, um, and see what that's all about. Yeah, but Michael Levin is apparently a human who has a lot of insight about that topic. And I don't know from what perspective that topic is. but I'll have to check it out and see what's up, and then come up with a part two to that episode. Again, I think it's more of a philosophical conversation than, because how do we prove that? How do um we don't know the vastness of this world to a certain degree. We have an idea, so we can't get a correct number. Our satellites, our telescopes, I'm sorry, are pointed at certain directions. We have very limited information. We have a lot of information, but all at the same time, we have very limited information. So I think it's more of a philosophical conversation than anything else. But I could be wrong. So we'll definitely do a part two to that. Definitely do a part two to that.
Oh yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add about that?
Nope. That one was one heck of a show. It was one of those where I didn't have a whole lot of references to kind of back up anything that I would say. So
It seems like we still don't.
I still don't know.
It seems like we still don't.
I'm lost.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation to have without getting too into the religious conversation, right? And then it becomes the religious dum-dums instead of the science dum-dums.
Yep.
And again, I'm a firm believer that you can have both. I've said this, and I'm probably going to repeat this a lot. And this podcast is going to be one of those things you guys get tired of, but and who knows? Maybe it changes. Maybe one way or another it changes, but I don't anticipate it changing. But I'm not a Christian, but I don't think I'm an atheist either. I wouldn't claim to be an atheist either. And a lot of these things, I don't want to have a religious conversation about it. They overlap a little bit sometimes, but that's the tough thing about that conversation is when you say that we are a mathematical inevitable whatever, we're inevitable, as opposed to we were carefully crafted and thought of. Obviously it'll stir a lot of emotion from humans who believe we are a special being created by a god, a deity. And that's really not the conversation I want to have, because again, I do believe that you can have both. I genuinely do believe that you can have both, but we'll definitely do a part two. So even if it's just for our one homie, what was his name? Our one homie.
I'd have to see the comment again.
Oh, it's Repton. Repton 007. Is that is that? It's a hell of a name. Yeah, I think that's the way. There was a few other comments that I'm not gonna touch. I'm gonna leave those alone. I don't want to.
It was a huge religious debate on this one, and I said no, that really wasn't what it was about. But yeah,
and that's, I think that's a big issue. Is my thing with religion is it relies a lot on faith, and the conversation ends short really quick, right? It just, I believe in God, and that's about it. And that's awesome if that's where you're at, but I don't think it feeds into this conversation of the science stuff that we wanted to accomplish that particular day. Maybe on some other day, but anyways, today you wanted to talk about something else.
Yeah.
What was that something else?
Yeah, so going by the title, your brain predicts your reality. So yeah, it's a nice little thesis. This also came from a couple of different university studies that basically that it has a lot to do with the observer effect, and it has to do with the way that you observe the world. So it's not just received by the brain, that your brain is actively constructing your reality through prediction. Use a sensory input, which is only used to correct errors. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
unlike last week's episode, this one has a lot of science. Like there is an incredible amount of science related to this. Um, I see a lot from this individual right here, Carl Friston.
mhm.
But yeah, there's a lot of information about
Yeah, the free energy principle is uh where his name comes up. So
the free energy principle.
yes.
Explain.
Well, I mean that was his principle. That was where he's explaining exactly how the brain is a prediction machine. And basically it looks I mean, he's introducing predictive processing through of the brain.
So this is the free energy principle is a mathematical framework stating that all adaptive self-organizing systems from cells to brain maintain their existence by minimizing the difference between their internal models and the world sensory feedback known as free energy or surprise. It acts as unified theory for action, perception, learning, suggestion, suggesting agents, minimizing predictions errors to maintain homeostasis.
Yeah.
Um, so it's all of this stuff. But yeah, by K. Friston, the free energy principle, unified brain theory. Interesting. So key concepts and application, active reference, and again, I'm looking at the AI version. Usually, this does come up with references, and it tells you where it's pulling it from. Take it for what it's worth. I'm not using ChatGPT, but I am just doing a general Google search. So again, read the articles, do all that stuff. This is generally okay, but I would definitely go look it up. Active interference systems don't just passively perceive; they act to change sensory input to match their prediction. E.g., moving to avoid pain, self-organization. Living systems maintain boundaries by resisting the natural tendency towards disorder, high entropy, which mathematically described as minimizing variational free energy. Bayesian mechanics, Bayesian brain mechanics. The brain behaves as an interference machine, constantly updating internal probabilistic models of the world to maximize model evidence. Information psychics or physics, sorry, not psychics, physics. That'd be fucked. Information physics, FEP, posits that coupled systems, agents, and environments will appear to track or model each other over time. Fascinating.
Oh yes. So, right now you think you're seeing the world clearly. Just what you see in front of you. Basically, your brain has already predicted what you're about to see, even before the light hits your eyes. So that's what the principle is basically saying.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of humans confuse this idea that and I see this a lot where people think, well, reality isn't real. This is all fake. This is all made up. And this is one of them. Is there is evidence that your brain is predicting what's about to happen, but it's only and sometimes not correct. By the way, sometimes it does it wrong. Like sometimes it's not well.
That's
Uh,
usually 100% of the time. That's it's well, I mean, the whole thing about this is that it's using your sensory input to correct in real time. So it's predicting, it's going to get things wrong. Um, your sense of sight, your sense of smell is what it uses to correct, what's wrong. So
yeah.
that's the input that you're actually getting is the corrected version of it.
On the other podcast that I do, the Guns for Everyone podcast, we had this conversation about humans being horrible at risk assessment, threat assessment. We're horrible at risk assessment, and a big part of it is that your brain is gravitates towards the rare because it's more dramatic. It's more um even though it's more rare, like we the the example we would give in that particular context is a lot of humans are okay with driving, but a lot of those, if you would take a certain population portion of those that are okay with driving, a big chunk of those are actually afraid of flying
Mm.
because well, a plane accident is pretty traumatic. They play it on the news a lot more, even though there's, mathematically speaking, there's more car accidents than there are airplane crashes.
Right.
They're just not as dramatic. They're just not as traumatic as a car accident. So the crash that just happened, was it at JFK, with the plane and that
Yeah.
cart? I mean, that
Wasn't it
shit.
like an emergency vehicle?
I don't remember if it was, or if it was something. There was a vehicle and a plane that crashed,
Yeah.
and that's everywhere. That's all over the news. Meanwhile, um, thousands of car crashes happened all over the United States at the exact same time, not reported, didn't make the news. So it's significantly more traumatic. That's going to be stored in your brain, right? Like that is stored in your brain when it starts to predict patterns and it starts to predict probability and it starts to predict all of that stuff. The thing is that your brain is designed for survival and it's fucking horrible at all of that stuff. It usually goes towards the overreaction instead of a proper reaction to what's happening.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's such a weird thing that it's using a lot of information that your brain is absorbing to try and predict what's going to happen in the future, but it's bad at it. Like it,
Yeah.
it's not amazing at it.
So the simplest way to put it is your brain basically will build a model of the world, and then it sends all the predictions downward through your body. Your sensory input, all your five senses, comes up as comes up with error signals, and then the brain just basically only updates itself when it's wrong. So that's that's about it. If it's right, it's not changing anything.
Yeah,
But
that's interesting because there is a lot of times when I am, and maybe it's not the same thing, but I we humans get this a lot where we go and eat something. Oh, my wife and myself and her grandpa and two of my daughters, we went to out to eat on Saturday. And my
Mhm.
wife was really craving a particular dish. My daughter got it, she didn't get it. And my wife's brain was like, "This is the way it's gonna be, and like, it's gonna smell good." And the dish came out, and shit was not it. Like that's not what. But in her brain, it was already like fucking tasting it. It was already predicting what this dish was going to be, and she was wrong. she, she was wrong.
Oh man.
So, yeah, it's super fascinating. I'm gonna try and find like an image of how it potentially happens. Um,
So you've heard of the rubber hand illusion?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so this was an experiment that basically tells you exactly how this works. You have a fake hand. Um, you're able to synchronize a touch of that fake hand, almost like your brain is looking at something touching that fake hand. Even though that hand is not yours, you still feel it somehow.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It's bonkers. What's bonkers about this, like, we're looking at it right now, and it has the mathematical equation. Now, I don't know if that's the correct mathematical equation, but and I'm not even gonna pretend to know what
it's
the
on
letters
it's on
mean.
the internet. It must be true.
Yeah, it's on the internet. It must be true. This is from medicalexpress.com. I don't know how trustworthy they are, but it's talking about the how the prefrontal cortex essentially sends it back, um, to the other cortex, and it's trying to figure out, sensory inputs, binary hit or miss, sensory continuous error based learning, reinforced learning. um, hypothesis or belief, prior knowledge about the internal, and then, this is interesting. I'm just trying to look for information like visuals for humans, also for myself on how this stuff works. But I mean, it's one of those relatively simple concepts that can get pretty complex. Um, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, here's another good example that's going to apply to everyone you know. What is it? The bend and aiming principle.
Which one?
The bend and aiming principle. Is that? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
Shooting with both eyes open, pretty much.
But what is that principle called again? Spell it.
I think it's Bindon or something like that, or something like that.
Bindon.
Yeah,
The
I'm
Bindon.
probably wrong. Bend and aiming concept.
Oh, bending aiming.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me look that shit up. I need to get better at this shit. Isn't that more for like tracking though? The bend and aiming concept, BAC, is a technique using both eyes open with a magnified aluminum optic to achieve rapid acquisition. Yeah, but I don't think this is the same thing, because we would argue, um we'd have
Because
to look
it
at
falls along the line of, say, like the blind spot prediction of your brain. So your brain is basically fusing um, two images together. So one eye is looking through, say, looking through an optic. The other eye is looking, straight ahead at the target, and your brain itself will actually predict, or it will actually put the two together.
Yeah, I kept hearing Ben and Amy concept.
Mm.
So I think the argument against that though, so if we're talking about shooting and stuff like that, is there's a lot of science that disproves this. Um, this is well,
So taking it as its basic um,
correct.
concept is basically that you never really see the raw data. So you're not going to see the input from your left eye versus the input versus for your right eye. You're only going to see the completed guess. So your brain has already filled in everything, um, that you're supposed to be looking at, rather than separately. You're not looking at your left eye and your right eye separately. You're looking at the entire concept.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem with trying to tie this in with this. If you look at it from a neurological perspective, so if you look at, if I put my finger in front at a certain distance, it's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
this finger, whether we like it or not, is only aligned to one eye. So if you're trying to use a scope, if you're trying to use sights in a bow and arrow type situation, whatever, you're you're really only using one eye. You're not using two eyes. Now your brain may be trying to fill it in, and people may call it using both eyes. And this is going to be interesting trying to fact check this, but we've done a lot of studies in the self defense world, science stuff. And if you talk to the neuroscientists, even the neuroscientists will tell you that you're only using one eye. You're not using two eyes. Your
Mm.
blind spots are more towards the
The center.
towards the center, and your brain does try, because of predicting modeling, does try to fill in the blanks. So I think this is where the confusion is with a lot of humans, are like, you can use both eyes open to with scopes, with sights, with, like, well, you can, but you're still only using one eye. Only one eye is actually being useful to you, and if you close one eye, you're actually helping your brain.
Mhm.
Oh, ignore all of that crap, and it might this might be an argument for that, right? Because predictive modeling is many times incorrect.
Yeah.
If you shut that shit off, now you're only seeing what is actually there instead of your brain trying to fill in what's not there.
That's like you can actually put a cover over top of your red dot and still see the same exact thing. You'll be able to see your dot and your target. That's your brain actually filling that in for you. You don't actually have to see it out of that eye.
Um, Explain that one again.
So there's an exercise where some people will actually cover the optic. So if you have a red dot, you know, and you're using the same bend and aiming concept, both eyes open, say uh, your left eye dominant. So you're looking through your optic through your left eye. You see your red dot. Even if you have the cover over the optic, and the only thing you can see is the dot shining, inside of the optic, your right eye will fill in everything else, or your brain will fill in everything that your left eye is not able to see. So if you're looking past the optic into the target, your brain is still going to be able to interface the dot onto the target the same way as if the cover is off.
Yeah, but you're talking about covering the front of the optic, not the back of it.
Right.
Yeah, so you
Yeah. So you're still able to see the dot. You're
yeah.
just not able to see through the glass of the optic.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is the ghosting effect that would happen because of the two. You're still only using one eye.
Mhm.
Um,
The
so
thing is, it's not the eye itself, or what the eye is able to see, because that's the raw data. It's what your brain is processing, and then the input that you're getting, that your brain is actually filling in, um, based off of just half of that raw data.
yeah, let me bring this up because this happens a lot and you guys are welcome to study this. This is where the issue becomes, or this is where the issue happens is you get this right when you try and keep both eyes open and you're trying to look past. Let me say this better. If you keep both eyes open and you're trying to see something that's in front of you, one eye is aligned with it, the other eye is at an angle. So you get this thing known as the ghosting effect, and then you essentially have two objects instead of just one object. This is the problem with 3D movies. 3D movies are actually filmed with two lenses that are side by side, and that's how you get the 3D effect. You wear the glasses that kind of merges the images together, and then you get that 3D effect. In using sights, if you don't close an eye, that's essentially what's going to end up happening is you because one eye is looking directly in front, because again that gun, whether you like it or not, that scope, that bow and arrow, whatever, whether you like it or not, is going to be aligned with one eye. I know the exercise that you're talking about. um it'd be it'd be interesting to see how it correlates with all of this stuff. I'm gonna put Isaac
Mhm.
on this. Isaac's gonna be on the job now. Because
Yeah.
this is what we try and do all the time is we're always constantly trying to disprove what we believe.
Hmm.
And in the shooting world, there's the opposite. Is in the shooting world is I want to prove what I already believe. So there's a lot of so I'm just saying I'm cautious about saying that that's what's happening there with that because there is a lot of information bias and confirmation bias in the gun world, in the shooting sports in general,
Yeah.
is instead of disproving that stuff. So I'm cautious about saying I
So
do see this a lot though in shit that happens when preparing for self defense, right? Because of the way our brain tries to predict poorly, we again we prepare for the things that are not very probable and ignore the stuff that is pretty probable.
good.
That we do see a lot where humans are like, well, I mean, if you look at training and there's this whole industry around preppers where the grid's gonna go down and the sun's gonna knock out the power grid and we're all just gonna die and you better prep and it's just like nothing wrong with having some extra water on hand.
Yeah.
But if we look at probability, you're not preparing for the most probable, which is changing the tires on your car so that you don't hydroplate. Uh, there's no hydroplaning happening when it rains. Like that's more probable than the sun knocking out the grid through
Yeah.
EMFs or
There's only so many cans of chili you can buy instead of snow tires or something.
correct. And but that is the way our brain works, though.
Yeah.
Our brain does go towards the insane. Our brain does go to the crazy, and a lot of it has to do with this is the predictive modeling. Like you say, a lot of the correction happens in real time and not beforehand.
Yeah. So
Go.
there's another thing called a predictive delay. So basically, your brain trying to smooth out your perception. It's the principle that we're always slightly in the past and not necessarily in in the current now. And we're actually experiencing just a stabilized model. So your brain kind of buffers a little bit. I mean, my brain kind of buffers a lot, but yeah, it buffers a little bit, and you're once the predictions have been proven through your sensory input, then it gives you the stabilized experience. So that's another uh, thing to look at.
Yeah, the brain uses predictive coding. I'm just reading again off of just um, a gathering of which one are these from PubMed, University of Melbourne. What you're seeing right now is in the past. That one I did know. So your brain is predicting the present. That one's super interesting. What you're seeing right now is in the past, so your brain is predicting the present. But anyways, brain uses predictive coding to overcome neur- neuronal transmission delays, allowing us to perceive the world in real time rather than in the past. Sensory input takes dozens of milliseconds to reach the brain, so the brain predicts the current position of moving objects or events to close the gap, often correcting the lag in the visual cortex. That is bonkers right there. That is absolutely batshit crazy that the brain knows how to correct what we're feeling and what we're seeing so that we don't feel. I don't know if you've ever played a video game, but I've become addicted to playing video games as a way to play with my kids. I really started doing this. Obviously, I did it when I was younger. Wasn't a big gamer, started doing it again, but um, and I'm not that huge into it, but I have started playing games, and there's a lot of times you play these games and there's a glitch, and
Oh yeah.
you move, but the moves you make happen fucking a second too later. There's that lag,
Hmm.
um, and that sucks. That's basically what our brain. That's how we would experience life if our brain didn't adjust for that shit. Is we
Correct.
would move, but our eye wouldn't see it. Or no, yeah, that's actually the way it would work. Is we would move, but our eye would not see it till 10 milliseconds later. I'm just giving a bullshit number. Um, so there'd be a delay, and our brain is correcting for that shit. It knows I'm about to move my hand, so it's adjusting for that time, which is
So now
bad crazy that our brain knows how to do that.
you've described being drunk. So that's that's pretty much it.
Never. Well, recently I don't really drink. The last time you can say that I had consumed alcohol, like for reals, consumed alcoholic beverages, I was a teenager. Uh,
Mhm.
it's never been my thing and never been my thing. So, all of the stuff.
Even
Go ahead.
even on the ADHD angle, you know, attention and focus. You know, the whole thing about ADHD. We have a lot of people that are that I mean, they read some of my articles and they try to self-diagnose and all that stuff. I'm not a doctor, everyone. I'm just gonna let you know that right now because I get people in my DMs all the time. Like, oh, you've described me perfectly and I need medication. I can't prescribe you medication.
Yeah.
Sorry. So it's basically ADHD is your brain's still making those predictions, but with ADHD, it's all about which predictions get priority. So that's pretty much what it is. Um, so you might get distracted by something else that got priority over the other prediction. So your buffer may run a little bit longer because it's actually constantly recalibrating.
Yeah. There's this I don't remember where I seen it in my studies of all of this stuff, but there's this analogy that our brain in this context works more like a weather app,
Mm,
um, where it's looking at previous models and it's trying to predict what's going to happen in the future based off of these models. The way the clouds were moving today, the way the clouds were moving yesterday, and it's trying to predict based off of this and all of the record keeping we have for decades. We can predict kind of okay um, how, but just like a weather app, many times it's wrong. There's been plenty of times where I send an email that says, "Oh, the weather's going to be like this," and then you show up that day and it's like the weather's not the way you said it was going to be. It's the temperature's a little bit different, the wind's a little bit more, it's a little bit less, but it is. But that's kind of how the brain works. It's more like a weather app. It stores a lot of information, good
mm.
or bad. It stores a lot of information and it tries to predict what's going to happen in the future. Um, and often it errs on the side of caution and fucks it all up.
I mean, on
Especially
my
at
phone all
pumps.
the time, I get an alert that says the rain is going to stop in a few hours. I'm like, dude, it hasn't rained in weeks. What the heck are you talking about?
Talking about there's no rain out here.
Yeah,
Uh,
it hasn't rained.
yeah. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. The brain is neuroscience is a fascinating thing,
Yep.
and this is one of these things where, and it also leads to a lot of pop science. It does lead a lot to this is not real. Your life is not real, and you see a lot of those headlines, and unfortunately, TikTok humans gravitate towards that, and they collect that information. They say, "Oh yeah, see, we live in the matrix." Like it's not living in the matrix. It's just your brain works in a very specific way, and
Right.
this is part of what it does, so that you don't die. Like it's the odd thing is that it pieces of your brain. If I read this correctly, pieces of your brain starts to kind of communicate with molecules other places, and they kind of sync in there. Again, this is just a high level general statement. It's not like my brain is telepathically sending information elsewhere. It's just we're just trying to predict each other, right? Just you see this in relationships where we're just trying to predict the next move. A lot
I
of
want
times
you.
wrong.
I want you to look up a neuroscientist named Anil Seth. Is Anil.
Hold on. Anil.
Yep. Last name Seth.
Seth.
Yep.
Se. Anil Seth. British
You're gonna
neos
laugh when you see this.
British neoscientist. He looks like an airbender.
He does.
Um, Chickadoo. I've never seen those cartoons, but what am I looking for?
um.
Overview. Anil Kumar Seth is a British neuroscientist and professor of cognitive and computational neuroscience at the University of Sussex, a proponent of materialist explanations of consciousness. He is currently among the most cited scholars on the topic of neuroscience and cognitive science globally.
Click that where it says people also ask. I think.
Oh,
right there.
which one?
The first one.
The first one. Anil Seth's theory of consciousness proposes that our conscious experience is controlled hallucination. Oh shit. Generated by the brain. Rather than passively receiving reality, the brain acts as a prediction machine, constantly forecasting sensory inputs and um, updating these models based on error signals. Our perceptions, including self and brain simulations designed for survival. Yeah, but like if you, I'm positive if we were to look at what he's actually said, controlled hallucinations, perception is an inside out process. The brain is locked in a dark skull, predicting what is happening outside and adjusting to sensory evidence. I think this is the problem with science is we use words that people know,
Hmm.
even though that's not really what we mean by that stuff. I
Yeah.
fall for this shit a lot of the times too, where it's just like you get the headline,
Hmm.
really read the story, and it's like that's not what we don't really mean hallucination. Like you licked a toad, and that's the way it is. It's just a better way of explaining it. I haven't read his work, so I have to read his work now.
So basically, to sum up what he's trying to say is us as individual humans are hallucinating all the time as individuals. And then when we agree, we just call it reality. So
Yeah, but I
that's
don't
all.
think he really means like real hallucination.
No, he's saying we're in our own delusion. Everybody everybody has their own story, and we live in our heads
Yeah, but that
100% of the time. And if you
that's
see the same thing that I see, then all of a sudden it's real.
but that's perception. That's peer pressure. That's not far fetched.
No.
That's not far fetched. We see this a lot in classes. And a lot of the classes that we do is you can almost already see where the class is going to go. Because if one human says one thing, and this is the problem with giving people's full reign, and but you encourage the conversation, but you also understand this is a problem with allowing people to have a real conversation with you. Is um example at the end of our classes we do a debrief. We allow students to give us feedback, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all of that. So give us feedback. And if one person says a negative thing, you will have people follow, and it's just like, well, I guess I'm gonna say negative things as well. And if people say positive things, then that's all they're gonna say is very rarely do you have one human say something positive and then somebody else say something negative. It's just like they all say the exact same similar things.
Yeah.
Um and but so that's kind of the same thing that's going on here. Is just humans just want to be agreeable to not to avoid conflict because
Mhm.
it's easier to go that way. I'm gonna have to look at what he actually means by hallucinations.
So by hallucination, it's supposed to be prediction without correction. So it's just what your brain is doing without the sensory input, without the correction. That's the
Yeah,
hallucination.
yeah, but I
And
don't I
then
don't think he means hallucination again, like fucking you're on mushrooms hallucination.
yeah,
I think he means more like ChatGPT hallucinations, where it's uh,
I tell ChatGPT it's hallucinating all the time just
let's
to
see,
confuse it.
let's
It's like,
see.
no, that's not right.
Let's see definition of hallucination. Maybe I don't understand what the fuck the definition of hallucination is.
So then after that, you have perception, which is what you were saying. Once you have two people perceive a certain thing, but perception is like the brain's prediction constrained by its input. So that's what you're perceiving.
Yeah. So definition from Oxford Languages. So that's where Google is taking this from. Is from Oxford. An experience involving the apparent perception of something not present. So, and I think this is where a lot of people, when they think hallucination, they just think drugs. I just am on drugs. A response produced by an artificial intelligence program or tool that appears to be accurate or plausible but contains inaccurate or misleading information. Does it have more?
AKA ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
So again, so I think this is the problem with most humans when they think hallucination is what he's describing quite literally just it's my perception. If you
So,
ever watch court cases, and I encourage humans to go watch court cases, it's fucking fascinating. If you watch like a murder trial,
mhm,
a lot of times the person says, "No, this was self-defense, it was not murder." And they look at all the facts and they one of the things you have to look at is what was that person's perception of the threat.
yeah,
Um, it's their reality. We may or may not agree with it, but it's their reality of the events. Sometimes it's just murder, but a lot of times it's like, no, that like they legit perceived that something that
blue.
was not real was real.
Yeah,
I mean, again, it was real to them, and
yeah,
the court has to take that into consideration as well. So I think
yeah.
that this is what he's talking about here
So
is yeah,
basically, what reality would be is basically a shared corrected hallucination. So it's
crazy.
yeah, it's when two people or more are actually seeing the same hallucination at the same time. Well, the same corrected hallucination.
Well, then it wouldn't be a hallucination at that point. It's a hallucination or a perception
Right. So it's the
until
same
people agree.
perception then.
Yeah. So, because the sky is blue is we agree that it's blue, even though science proves that blue really isn't. It's not something that happens all that natural. Like you Google that shit. That's a fascinating one where blue's not real. It's
Hmm.
more complex than that. And there's more nuance to it than that. But this is why
That's
you
next
don't.
week.
What's that?
That's next week.
It's next week.
Yeah. The
For sure.
reality of blue.
As we see all of these blue lights and but it's not natural. It's not a very natural thing. A lot of people say, well, the sky's blue, like, but it's kind of not. It's the way the atmosphere filters out certain colors and we perceive it to be blue.
Yeah.
um
What
because
about surprises? So you only notice your brain really only notices surprises because if its prediction is correct, I mean, it's nothing. It doesn't really correct itself. There's nothing for it to correct.
yeah,
But when that prediction fails, then all of a sudden it catches your attention. That's where your brain has to correct everything from its sensory input.
yeah,
That's what we count as surprises. So
yeah, this is what we talk about a lot in our self-defense classes, this idea that military training, police training is, for the most part, a big chunk of it is offensive, and you have an anticipation. I kind of know what I'm going to. I got the information. They told me go here, and I went there, and I kind of know what's going to happen. So there's not much of a surprise.
mhm.
So that scenario tolerates what you train in a controlled environment a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
If
it's
you train to stand a certain way, to hold your posture a certain way, and you do it this way all the time, that is essentially you trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, when
mhm.
in reality you have no clue what's going to happen in the future. And then when you do get the surprise, it is more difficult for you to defend yourself because you did not train your brain to process information. You trained your brain to fight a very specific way out of context.
Yeah.
And
It's
hopefully that
it's
makes
the
sense.
same. A very base level way to look at it is, can you feel the shirt that you're wearing until something in that shirt changes direction or something changes that makes you kind of feel the shirt. Otherwise, your brain just cuts it off. You don't really feel it, right?
Yeah, until you feel the tag move and it starts poking you, and
Yeah.
there's a fold or a crease. That happens a lot in sleeping, right? Like the pillow has to be a certain way, or else. But once it's a certain way, like you almost forget you're on a pillow.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's fucking crazy, man. That's
So
the tagline of this podcast, by the way.
yeah.
It's crazy. Science is
So
nuts.
a good way to say it is you don't really perceive what is happening. You perceive what breaks your expectation. So um that's a good way to look at even your self defense.
Well, we do an exercise where we have people look for a unique change in the environment.
Mm,
And one of the biggest mistakes that learning instructors have is they try to do something outlandish, grabbing a gun in or charging at something or whatever, like being explosive. And it's really difficult to tell people like that's not what you're looking for. If you were in an active threat and a fucking gorilla jumped out of the bushes and was going wah, like you would notice that. You don't need help
yeah,
noticing that. You need help. Your brain needs help looking past the gorilla that's not a threat, and looking for the subtle shit that could potentially be a threat.
right.
Like that's the problem with the human brain is I in a very chaotic situation, I don't want to look for the obvious. I want to look more for the subtle because the obvious is the obvious. Like if there's a person with a knife saying I'm going to kill you, that's obvious. Like, your brain is going to pay attention to that.
Yeah,
What it may not pay attention to is somebody holding a knife to the side, not saying anything. Like you might overlook that, and you should be looking for that. Like you have to be explicit about looking for that particular threat because it's not as
mhm,
obvious, if that makes sense. And I think that's what we're talking about here is your brain's looking for very obvious things, not for the surprise.
correct.
If I'm understanding you correctly. This is why
Um,
it's important for the understanding of neuroscience.
yeah, it's not necessarily looking for something grand that's gonna change his perception. It's looking for just something that changes. So, say you're in a, I mean, I work in a lot of data centers.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in a data center and all you hear is the whirring of the fans and things like that. Somebody could come through blasting music. You might hear it, you may not. Usually those fans are much louder than that. Um, but as soon as all the fans stop, that grabs your attention faster than anything. So
Correct. The silence. If
the
you're a parent
silence is like,
if you're a parent, it's kinda the same thing, like, "Why is it so quiet?
yeah, why is my kid quiet and
Why
it's
is my
been
kid
missing for
quiet?
2 hours?
The fuck is going on? Why are they quiet?" Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah.
So the question I had is, are you ever actually in contact with reality? I mean, we already went through a show where we said we can't touch walls, we can't walk through walls because we bounce right off of them. Um, or the pressure bounces off of them or something like that.
The
Something about
electromagnetic
yeah,
repulsion.
our electrons repel
Yeah,
walls.
yeah.
So, I mean, are you ever actually in contact with reality or with the world or anything?
Well, according to neuroscience, no, that, that one from Melbourne was actually a pretty decent read. I encourage you guys to go read it. Um, what was it? The predictive delay of the brain.
Hmm.
That was from one of the articles was from Melbourne, and the title of that one is "What you're seeing right now is the past, so your brain is predicting the present." Um, Encourage you guys to go read that. I just kind of skimmed through that, but it's a really good one. It depends on how you define reality. It depends on like I would say yes, obviously this is real. This is a microphone. I am touching the microphone. You are in front of me. Obviously this is real.
Hmm.
So from my point of view, from my brain, 100% we are in reality. The problem is like well, how are we defining that reality? And I think this is the problem with science is everybody wants to define reality a slightly different way instead of saying this is what reality is.
Yeah, they're defining it as objective experience, and so basically, the world that you see isn't, or the world that you're experiencing isn't actually the world itself. It's pretty much the most stable version your brain can come up with. So, yeah,
According like
it's
but
so
it's
your
still
brain.
real.
It's real to you. Yeah.
Well,
So
no,
it's
there's like what do you see behind me?
um, shelves.
Shelves, like for sure, and it's got shit all over it.
Yeah.
Um, like we 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 both see it. Like it's not subjective. That is an objective reality.
Uh-huh.
I think emotions are probably more subjective. Is um, I think once you start adding emotion to it and feelings, then it alters your view on what real is and what it's not. Again, the way I read text is often based off of my traumas, so I often find myself telling other people what I'm replying to make sure that we're on the same page.
Hmm.
Um, I've had to do that a lot. It's just like, hey, your text came off as bitchy. Your text, because that's based off of my filters. I'm like, no, I was just writing a text. Like, because text has no emotion,
Right.
but often you read text based off of, and you give it an emotion, but that emotion is yours. That
Correct.
emotion is not always the emotion that the person was writing it from. Like that is a subjective reality.
I'm always perceiving exclamation points as incorrect. Like I can't, I don't know what those mean. So if you give me an exclamation point, I don't know if you're excited, if you're angry, if you're, I can't tell.
Yeah,
So
for sure, for sure. Which is hilarious because I always write "Hey" at the beginning of almost all of my replies, like "Hey," and it's an exclamation point.
right.
Almost always. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
I would
but
think you're yelling at me or something. I'm
but see again, that's your perception based off of feelings.
correct.
But it doesn't get away from the fact that I still did text you, or I did still email you, or there was a conversation had that there
Mhm.
is a reality of a conversation that was had, but the emotion you added to it based off of traumas and emotions is you can argue your hallucination, but only based off of previous relationships, previous experiences. But that's your problem. That's not my problem. But it's still a very real thing, the conversation. So this is the problem with like when we argue is reality real? Is this all make believe? Is like it depends on what this is real. This is absolutely real. I don't think we
So
can debate that it's real or not.
right now, Edgar, your brain's predicting this sentence right now, and it's finishing all the words that I'm saying before I even say them. If it's good enough, you're never going to know the difference.
Well, but as you're talking, I'm predicting it.
Hmm.
Like if you say finish my sentence and then you stopped, I couldn't predict it because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If you say predict the next sentence and then you shut up, like I can't do it. I could only predict it because I already know the words that go together.
Well, I mean, according to what we're talking about here, your brain is buffering. So it's basically your brain is already ahead of you and predicting the words, but it corrects everything
Yeah.
before you actually perceive it.
Before it goes to the prefrontal cortex and it makes logic out of it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do that with reading and sometimes we do that very poorly. One of my biggest criticism about students is how they don't read the emails and they're like, I did read it. And they're like, well, read it to me again and we'll see where the disconnect was. And they read it and they're like, oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Like, see what happened was you skimmed through it, you read through it really fast, and your
Mhm.
brain was trying to predict what it was going to say to be efficient. And this is the other thing is we can argue that your brain just wants to be efficient and use the least amount of resources as possible.
Low
So that,
energy state. Yeah.
yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was that model, right? The
That was yeah. Basically, your molecules are always looking for the lowest energy state in
yeah.
order to survive. So
We call that lazy, we call that whatever, but it is quite literally your brain just trying to be the most efficient that it possibly can. But yeah, you
mm,
did mention that how that one neuroscientist, free energy principle, is that what you're talking about?
yep.
Or is this another one?
No. Yeah. Well, free energy principle is it's going to be talking about the
Oh, that's a different one.
yeah
Yeah.
the way
But
your brain is always going to try to pick the most efficient route.
right. But
In
again,
exchange for survival.
that doesn't change what's real. It just changes you when you were reading it really fast. Your brain was trying to be efficient. It was filling in the gaps based off of what you know and what based off of what you understand. It was filling in the gaps, and a lot of times it's wrong, and then you have the instructor yelling at you for saying for not reading the emails correctly,
Then
and
it
then
makes you use your senses, and you
make
have to
sure you use your senses and do all that stuff. But once we read it together, we're like, ah, yeah, that's what it means.
mhm,
There's been plenty of times where we read the email together, and then I have to realize, ah, we both agree what I said is we both agree on what I said, and but we both agree with like, ah, I could see how it gets misinterpreted by other humans
yeah.
because of the way it's written. And but it's still the real though. It's still this is my argument with a lot of people who say reality is not real. Like it is.
Oh man, I just had some deja vu going on here.
Yeah.
This is weird. I think I've had this conversation before.
Oh, we've all had this conversation before.
Yeah.
We I think this is one of the big mysteries of the world, right? When you have this conversation about what's the purpose, is it all real? Like all of this is
Mhm.
batshit crazy. Like so we've
Yeah.
had everybody's had this conversation before on the insanity of how our brain works and the insanity on how the universe works.
So your perception really isn't driven by input at all. It's actually driven by errors. So it's just your brain correcting what it thought was going to happen, or
Well, your
uh,
perception to a certain degree is an error.
well, it's the correction of the errors, right?
I don't think so. I think I think your perception is the error.
Oh,
Like let's look that up because that's a interesting conversation. I think the prediction is the error, or your perception. I'm sorry, would be the error. Um, is perception? I'm gonna just fucking ask it. Is perception the error? Because I'm sure somebody's had this query before,
hmm,
and this is what it says. Again, you were going to the top. I always caution people by going to the top and look shit up. It says perception is not necessarily an error itself, but rather a subjective inferential process that often leads to errors in judgments. This again, I'm sticking to my guns and saying that perception is the error. Um,
yeah, maybe.
yeah, for sure. We have to look it up. Um, but I mean, you can't say it's not the error itself, but it often leads to errors in judgment. So I, whatever. Uh, perception acts as a process of interference, not a direct capture of objective reality, making it prone to misinterpretation. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So misinterpretation. Yeah, bias.
Bias.
Yeah. So that's I think that's where the error is in perception. But I think perception is supposed to be the correction of the uh the errors that, I mean, because your brain is already predicting, and it'll likely predict every single scenario wrong. Once it gets input from your senses, then it's running a corrective model, and that's what you actually perceive. Um, in that corrective model, there probably are biases that it's going to inject in there, and that's when you can probably perceive things incorrectly.
Probably biases for sure. There's going to be biases. They're going to be chock full of biases.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, interesting stuff. So to recap, your brain, based off of previous information, for right or wrong, it's thinking ahead on what's about to happen. And as I touch things, as you stub your toe, as you burn your hand, as you get a brain freeze, it starts to correct. It's like, nope, that shit was colder, hotter than what it was. This was closer than what it was. And it starts to correct it. You throw a basketball and you're like, I think this is how much energy I have to throw the basketball in, and then you miss, and the brain's like, ah, I calculated wrong. Try that shit again, and then it corrects for whatever it is, more energy, less energy, a little more to the right, a little more to the left, and it
Hmm.
starts to correct based off of the visual information, the touching information, the smell or whatever. Taste sometimes, unfortunately, when you go to a restaurant, you think shit's gonna taste the way you wanted it to, and it doesn't. I argue that nostalgia has you believing that your ancestors' cooking is better than what it was. Some ancestors cook pretty good, but I think a lot of your grandparents are not as great at cooks as you thought they were. It was just your brain and your emotions that connect you with, and like it tastes better than what it was. So like your brain wants there to be an emotional connection to it.
Hmm.
It enhances, because of bias, it enhances the taste and the flavors of your ancestors. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble.
Is
Uh,
that what happened at dinner the other day?
no, because that was at a restaurant. It wasn't
Oh,
ancestors. That was at a restaurant.
oh, okay,
Um,
their ancestors.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But I for sure have told my wife, like, that's not real Mexican food, and like, no, but my grandma made it this way. I'm like, that's not fucking cool your tits. That's not what it is. But it's her grandma, so of course, like her cooking is her cooking because she loves her grandma. Can't
Mm,
take that away from her. But
mm,
asshole is just gonna be like, nope, that's nostalgia, right? That's your brain. This is not predicting. But I have experienced that too. You go to a place where you went to when you were a little kid, and then your wife talks shit about it, and you're like, it's still good, and it's just a sandwich, it's just whatever, it's just food, but like it's definitely your brain predicting what's gonna happen in the future. And then when it doesn't go that way, or it makes it go that way. The
oh,
other thing where the logical side of your brain is just like, it's just a sandwich, and
yeah.
then the other side of your brain's like, "Yeah, but it's the greatest fucking sandwich ever," and then your logic is like, "But it's still just a sandwich, like, it's calm down, it's still
Mhm.
a sandwich." Yeah, the brain's fascinating. It's a weird machine. It's a weird machine. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Anything else you wanna add before we close this down?
No, this was a good one.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. I'm
Mhm,
sure we could do a part 2 and 3 to this as well as we learn more information about this, or maybe we can't.
mm,
But at any rate, I appreciate you guys jumping on. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, in the future, you guys share this stuff, subscribe, do all the things that you do for social media stuff.
mhm.
Obviously, at some point, if it's just Richard and I having these conversations, we could just have them over Zoom and not include you guys. So it does help out when people share the stuff, like, comment, do all the things that you're supposed to do on the social medias. But so far, I'm enjoying this stuff. So
Yeah.
um, go.
If anybody gets a chance, if you're on Facebook, check out my Facebook page. It's just my name, Richard Fletcher. Got a lot of little interesting articles and things like that, and jump in the comments and debate with all the people that like to turn it into religion and stuff like that. And none of it is religion, by the way. So
Can you I think you can edit your name. What is
um,
the engineer of reality?
Engineer of Reality would be the YouTube channel. And I haven't really posted anything else other than these streams.
Easy.
So
Yeah.
eventually I'll start to do something.
Yeah.
I've been encouraged to do voiceovers and stuff like that for some of the articles that I write. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Check that out, Engineer of Reality, Richard Fletcher on Facebook. Um, for me, it's just my name on whatever. But yeah, maybe at some point we'll have a website. We'll do this correctly. But again, if there's nobody going to be watching it, nobody going to be sharing it, then it's just one of those where it, the for me right now, the amount of energy putting into this has to make sense.
Mhm.
So I think right now this makes sense, and if it gets bigger, then it'll make sense. But as of right now, we'll see where this goes. We'll see where this goes. But I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out
Yeah.
for an hour and 11 minutes. See you guys next week. Probably, most likely. Predict that. I'm predicting that.
It's going to be on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's gonna be on Tuesday at
Oh
7
man,
p.m.
maybe not 7 p.m., but yeah, sometime around that
Just
time, if I can
7-ish.
get all my stuff worked out.
So, all right, guys. We'll see you guys.